Everybody, welcome back to the Lust is Boring podcast. As you can see, we got special guest today, Father Agustino Torres, C.F.R. Father, thank you for joining us.
It's a joy, Jason. Great seeing you.
And likewise, Father and I had some amazing times together this summer. We got to go to the Holy Land together as well as Poland together. And then now we've got our next pilgrimage coming up to Mexico City together for the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Father, have you been there before? This is going to be a first for you.
I've been there before, but not for the actual feast day. This is a bucket list thing. This is this is a dream come true here.
Yeah, I remember being in El Paso one year on the Feast of Our Lady Guadalupe, and I just went to some random morning mass on our feast day, and I figure, okay, I'm sure there's a couple people going to be in there, and I walk into this, I think it was a cathedral, and it was like 800 people packed. The lights were off. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning, and everyone had candle lights, and there was like mariachis before the Tilma of Our Lady Guadalupe, and they were serenading her, I guess, with the song that you would sing to a teenage girl. And it was just beautiful to watch the piety and faith and devotion. Now, imagine that in Mexico City on her feast day. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's going to be bonkers.
I think that, it's like a Hispanic cultural phenomenon where everybody is Guadalupano on this day, even the Protestants, and they this is like primetime television stuff. Like seriously, like primetime television is like there at the Basilica, and we're going to be there.
Oh, man. Well, if we want to invite everybody who's listening to come on with us, I know it's kind of short notice. We're leaving just before the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is in the middle of December, but there's still room to come if you want to sign up. Bring your family. It doesn't matter if you're grandparents, teenagers with your family, college students, young adults. Just go to chastity.com/pilgrimage or chastity.com, hit events, then pilgrimage. Sign up. It's going to be like 5-6 days down there. We're going to visit the different cultural sites. I guess there's like some floating garden we're going to check out. See the Tilma of Our Lady Guadalupe. We're going to also do some service work down there. So it's not just like a pilgrimage in the sense of like a tourism thing. It's really going to be a missionary trip as well. And so I just want to invite you to spend the week with Father and I. So it's coming up fast, still slots available. Go to chastity.com. We would love to spend the week with you guys there and Our Lady.
Yeah, Jason, I get a feeling that Our Lady's calling some people to come on down. If she's calling you, go.
No, when your mother calls, you don't argue with mom. You just go. She'll explain later why she's calling you. But for today's episode, first we want to thank everybody who supports us on Patreon. We love you. We appreciate your generosity keeping this podcast afloat. And so if anyone wants to support the podcast, the ministry, just go to patreon.com/Jason Everett. You can support us. We'll send you all kinds of free stuff. And then you can submit ideas and topics for shows that we can hopefully do. We'll give you our personal email, correspond that way if you want, but we'll put the link for that and the pilgrimage in the show notes. But for today's topic, we solicited questions through Instagram and Facebook from you, our listeners, and Father and I, we got more than we could possibly answer in one podcast, but we're just going to grab a bunch of them, run through them, and see where the Holy Spirit takes us. So Father, first question comes in from a young single woman. She had a date planned with this guy. I don't know if they met online or what it was, but he had a bit of a distance to drive to see her for the first time. And she sends him a text message. And this is what she said. She said, so, by the way, I'm not sure what your expectations are, but how shall I put this? If part of the motivation for such a long drive to me is intimacy, you're wasting a trip. That's just how I roll. And if that changes your plans, I understand. No hard feelings. Okay. So she's just kind of putting it out there, just so you know. And he texts her back like, question mark. Why would you say something like that? I never mentioned or expected anything like that. Not all guys are the same. And makes me upset that you would even have to say that. And so she's like, oops, and she tries to text him back. Nothing, gone. Just totally cuts it off, just disappears. And so she asked me, so my question is, should I have handled things in a different way? Is there a better way to set clear boundaries and expectations without sounding like you assume that they want sex? And so thoughts on that, Father?
Well, I feel like I can talk to both her and him. If I was talking to him, I would say, bro, you got to understand. Women are coming from a perspective where so many times they're looked at like meat, and there could be some wounds there from all that, and maybe she had some experiences. The bottom line is that if she is worth investing time in, investing like your life with, which is what courting is supposed to be, your discerning marriage. then handle some of those things in a different way. Like I would say, an adequate response from him would be like, "Hey, I don't know what your past experiences has been. I never mentioned that. I am not, just to be clear, I'm not expecting that. I'm not that. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to get to know you." To kind of like de-escalate. So I think like we needed to de-escalate the situation, maybe on both ends. And for her, I don't know what experience she's coming with. I do know I speak to a lot of young women, and they tell me that it's tough out there. It's really tough. To maybe put it in a way that's clear, but not expecting the good, presuming the good, right? Like my Dominican professor taught me in seminary. You presume the good, however, you bring things with clarity and charity. If there's a way that she could worded that a little bit differently, yeah. But honestly, like I see more the guy. The guy has a responsibility to de-escalate, to kind of like say, "Hey, look, I'm communicating my expectations by hearing your response and setting you at ease." I feel it's more on the guy's part to kind of like do that.
Yeah, and what I would say to the girl and to the guy, to the girl, you could have, I guess, maybe as opening the text, say, "Hey, I don't want to imply that I'm saying you want this stuff. I just want to put this out there." So you could diffuse it a little bit but that's all I would say to the girl, because let's look at the guy's reaction, though. If I were to go on a first date with a young woman from a long distance, and I'm a young guy looking to maybe date her, court her, or whatever, and she sent that message, I would not only drive to her, I would drive twice as fast to her so that I could get there before any other guy could, because it's like, whoa, I found a woman of character, of virtue, who's willing to put it all on the line on day number one to let me know where she stands with her body and with God. Like, oh, that's a keeper. I'm on my way. And just the fact that he doesn't respond like that, and he just takes it like so deeply and personal, I don't know. I mean, to me, it kind of looks like virtue signaling here. Like, I am so offended that you would say that. I'm just going to cut off all contact from you. I tend to be of the idea that maybe that is what he wanted, but he's not going to text her back and say, "Hey, I appreciate you telling me that you're not available. I'm out, but that's all I wanted anyway." He's not going to be that honest. Rather, he's going to play this card of like, "I am just so deeply offended that you would imply that I would want that stuff." Because honestly, if he did want that stuff in terms of purity and chastity, he'd already be on his way to you. But the fact that he acts all offended by it, I don't know. To me, if he really is a guy who pursues chastity and that's his response, he's just fragile, in my opinion. To me, I think what you send him is admirable. It's courageous. It's a sign of what you really want and what you really deserve. And the way I look at it, what makes you least attractive to the wrong guys will make you most attractive to the right guys. And so chastity is like a repellent to guys who want simply the body. Whereas, if you're offering the body, then that'll be a repellent to the guys who really want a chaste woman. And so the very fact that he seems so offended and repulsed and repelled by the fact that you're kind of setting the bar really high, I think chastity right there served its purpose well for you. It weeded out a guy, brought his intention to the surface. So I wouldn't look so much as what he said in the text as how he responded. One text back to you, conversation done. You did a good job. So I would say kudos to you for being upfront and, honest with the guy on date number one. Some girls aren't like that, and they spend 6 months in a relationship with the guy. Does he love me? Is he in it for the right reasons? I don't think you need to waste that time. I'd say date number one, be upfront, see how he responds. It tells you a lot about a guy. So next question rolls in. This is a young man. He says, "I'm a senior in high school, and I felt a pull towards the priesthood the past year. However, I also feel a strong desire to attend college and get a degree, or before committing to seminary, as I do not feel ready to enter one. I feel like college is my next step, and I'm not 100% sure of the benefits of entering seminary straight out of high school, or what should I do?" And then another guy said, "When discerning a vocation, how can you distinguish between your voice, the world's voice, the voice of God, and Satan's voice?" So, Father, some tips on discernment for those young men?
Yeah, the first guy sounds a little bit like me. I was like, yeah, maybe, but then let me go to college. What I would say is that yes, that's good and true. I don't think you're ever ready to go to seminary. You're never ready to be a priest. You're called, and there's a distinction. Sometimes we feel like we're supposed to be ready for something, even marriage. And it's really us growing in maturity to receive the call and to trust God. A big shift in my discernment was when I realized that I didn't have to have it all together, all figured out. I just needed to depend radically on God. And that's how I would live out my vocation. I would venture to say that the married vocation is not too far off from that either. But I would say if you're going to college, make sure that there's a place where you can flourish in your faith in college, because college sometimes can be a really rough place. It could be a spiritual desert. And if there's a place, and there's a lot of colleges that have awesome college campus ministries, some of them aren't even Catholic, and they have a flourishing campus ministry center. Find a place that has that, where it's not going to be like next to impossible, a Herculean effort to live your faith, because it's already difficult in college, because the culture is not really authentically Catholic. Even in, I'm going to say it, even in Catholic universities, it's like, in fact, some of these things are contrary. So that's what I would say for the first guy. For the second, that's the bread and butter of discernment. How can you distinguish between those voices? The short answer, because that's really the process of discernment. The long answer is you need to find a spiritual director. God always speaks in harmonies. Don't just go just by one sign. You test the signs, and it's a mutual discernment. Just like marriage, it's like you don't just decide, I'm going to marry that woman. No, she has to want to marry you too. So you enter into a discernment with the church, with the diocese, a religious order. And they'll tell you, it's like, hey, yeah, we feel that you're called. And that means something, because they'll also tell you, we don't feel you're called right now. We think that you need to take a year. We think that you need to do this or that. And that's okay. And that's honest. And maybe sometimes people feel like hurt and offended, like, oh my gosh, they said I wasn't ready yet. I'm like, good, praise God. That's mercy. Because let me tell you, the man that you are now is the priest that you will be. So work on yourself now. Same thing for marriage. It's like, you don't just automatically magically change after you exchange vows. Like, there has to be work that goes in to prepare your heart for this sacrament, this way of life. The short answer is read scripture, pray, test things, go to confession often, and find a good spiritual director. That's how you distinguish between your voice, Satan's voice, and God's voice. That's in the time allotted. That's what I would give to people.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts I'd have is it's not necessarily priesthood or college, because lots of colleges, I went to Franciscan universities, have great priestly formation programs on campus. So you can actually discern while getting a college degree, studying your theology. You can get some of the credits ahead of the game for in the seminary that might apply over there. And maybe in the process of discerning, I realize, okay, maybe I'm not called to priesthood. Well, good. I've already got 2 years of college credits under my belt anyway. So Steubenville, I know for one, has one. But like you said, some of those secular universities, I think of like Texas A&M or Lincoln, Nebraska. Just solid as a rock. I'd much rather send my kid to some of these secular colleges that have a solid campus ministry program than to these Catholic colleges who are anything but in their identity. So if you're looking for a solid Catholic college, obviously I'm a little prejudiced towards Franciscan, but go to the Newman Guide for choosing a Catholic college, and you'll find a short list of all the solid ones there. But I think one of the most overlooked tools of discernment is just action. Instead of just getting paralysis by analysis of like, I need to know the right decision before I move, just go. Maybe you don't know, with dating, is this the right girl? Ask her out, go on a couple dates, see if it works out. Like, you'll find out a lot faster that way than by doing like 14 novenas in a row, trying to just look for signs in the heavens. So just the action of discernment and just being at peace with all these things. If you just get used to saying the little yeses that the Holy Spirit asks of you throughout the day, I think the big yes is going to kind of fall right into place. And so be at peace. You could go to college, do the priestly discernment stuff there. Secular places, you can still find some great Newman centers. Try to find a focus team on campus. If you go to Focus Fellowship at Catholic University students, you can see a map of where they've got missionaries on all their campuses. You could end up there getting a good Bible study program. do discernment stuff there as well. So I think you got a lot of good options, but just keep saying yes to God, and he'll take care of the rest. Just be at peace. You don't want to enter a vocation out of shame of just like, I feel so spiritually guilty of not giving God this when I'm not sure I even want it, but I feel like I'm being a bad Catholic boy if I don't give him priesthood before married life. And you just got to realize this is a call. God is going to give you this deep burning desire that nothing else will quench. And yeah, there could be a little fear and trepidation there, but your vocation is his gift to you, not your response to spiritual guilt. And so be at peace, find a good spiritual director.
This isn't, this isn't like the company and response. But sometimes when people have asked me, first of all, I think it's beautiful that a young man is asking if he's called to be a priest. But one like really quick test, I asked them, they asked me, how did you know? And I respond, well, I felt a call. I tried to kill it and it didn't die. It's like there's a call. It's a burn in your heart that doesn't go away. And you're just like, I can't keep it within, like it says in Jeremiah chapter 20, and I must respond. And so,
yeah. And
there you go.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful because I think some people almost self-generate their own calling out of a sense of guilt. And they're wrestling more with guilt than they are with the calling. So, but good spiritual director to help you work through those. So now shifting gears from priestly vocations to dating. How do you go about dating? This is coming from a girl. When you like a guy and you think the friendship is going somewhere, but he isn't making a move to ask you out, is it okay for the girl to make the move, or do you wait for him to be a gentleman and ask you out officially? Thoughts, Father?
That's a good question. I mean, because I do think that there's something going on with young men and like that initiative. It's not necessarily being taught or given. I think that a lot of young men do struggle with that, and you speak to them one-on-one. It's like, yeah, I totally, like, I would love to. It's like, so why don't you say something? Like, oh, I can't do it. There's something about that. I think it's a maturity thing, and I think that in a all things being equal, it eventually comes in time. So that being said, if a young woman kind of like, says like, hey, so are you going to ask me out for coffee or something? Or are you going to like, ask me out on a date? Like, I wouldn't be against it, although normally it should be the guy. But like, if a woman does take that step, I don't think it's wrong. But I do know that he has to show signs of growth for the relationship to truly flourish. That's how I would answer that.
Yeah, what I would say to that in terms of my 2 cents is I think technology has really made guys so much more passive than they've ever been before, because it's typical of human nature to follow the path of least resistance. And if I can just kind of hop on an app and, swipe back and forth to find a potential girlfriend, then why do I really want to go to all the effort to ask a girl out in public in broad daylight when I have to know her name and face the fear of rejection? And because a lot of guys don't want to expose themselves to that risk, they just play around on apps, look at pornography, and then the poor girls are left there to think like, what the heck? Like, all I want is a date. Okay, like, I'm not asking for an engagement ring. I'm not asking for anything fancy here. Just a date, not a hookup, a date. And so I think I understand. It's not that necessarily women are becoming more aggressive. I don't know if that's the right word. Just more forward, wanting to, in a sense, grasp to make things happen in their own timetable, because it just doesn't seem to be unfolding otherwise. And so I think I can enter into the angst of a girl who wants to kind of initiate things. But I would say in terms of your situation, if a guy is kind of stuck in that little friend zone, so to speak, and you're wondering like, what gives, where's this thing going? And you don't want to be the girl who's like, okay, look, are we a thing or not? I'd say one thing you need to look at is the duration in which you've been stuck in that friend zone. Has it been 3 days or has it been 2.5 years? Like, that obviously makes a big difference in discerning how you want to handle the situation. And so if you're wondering, well, it's only been, 2 months, maybe I need to give it more time, or like, this is like eating up 6 months of my life, always thinking he's about to initiate a clear relationship and he's just not doing it. I would say in that situation, if you're thinking, hey, this is really dragging on, have the conversation, because to me, it's a win-win, because either you end up with clarity and a boyfriend, or you end up with clarity and the open door for a potential boyfriend somewhere else. And so if he's just dragging his feet and he's not being clear, I know it's hard to have that difficult conversation, because I think historically the reason guys have been the one to ask the girl out is because it takes the burden of the potential of rejection off of the girl, and it places it on the guy. Like, here, you don't have to worry about being rejected. I'll take that on as a courtesy to you. And so it wasn't seen as a sign of chauvinism and misogyny, but as a way to kind of honor the woman, of like, let's not have you need to worry about that. I'm going to take the risk of rejection because you're worth just a chance. I'm willing to risk being rejected just to have a shot to be with you. And so I know it's a frustrating situation, but if you find yourself stuck in that friend zone, I'd say be willing to have the hotter conversation, because guys are pretty simple creatures. If we want to be with the girl, we'll be with her. Like, if she lives on the moon, like, we'll find a way. Like, we'll be with her. We'll commit to her without all the excuses. So try not to give him excuses as to why he's not committing. Give him an opportunity to explain himself by kind of asking him where things are headed. So next question, Padre. When Jesus heals us of any wounds, is there a maximum goal we can reach? Is the healing process for the entire life? I would imagine this question depends on the wound. I mean, obviously some are instantaneous, miraculous cures. Other ones can go on. But what's your thought on that, Father, in terms of the process of healing over the course of a person's life?
I mean, that's a great question. Obviously, Jesus did a lot of signs and wonders, and it was through healing for the sake of the legitimacy and the authority of his revelation. Like he was healing people, but he was also revealing who he was. And I think that's the key in being healed. It's not so much like being healed as like a process just to be healed. It's being healed to reveal who Christ is in your life and for others. Sometimes you're being healed, but it's not even for you. It's for others. Maybe it's for your wife that you're being healed. Maybe it's for your children, or, in the case of a priest, maybe it's for your congregation that you're being healed. And these things are important. Like, we're not healed just for ourselves. And as if it's a miraculous healing, amen. God allows these things sometimes for an increase in faith, but even still, it's about Jesus, not just about being healed. I think sometimes, Jason, people might get caught up in like a healing frenzy. Mm-hmm. And it's I still feel this. What can I do? I can't do that. And, can I just say, like, none of us are fully healed before we enter into our vocation. You are not fully healed in order to get married. I was not fully healed in order to become a priest. There's still a need for God to help us in the everyday. So I think that, we don't want to turn this into like a thing just for itself, but to reveal who Christ is in the world. And not for nothing, Jesus had some wounds that were still open after his resurrected body. And so there's some wounds that stay open for the sake of salvation. And I'll just let you meditate on that, what that means for you.
Yeah, and I think of the biblical passage where Christ is healing the blind man, and he kind of does one shot, and he's like, okay, how's that working? And he's like, well, I see people, but they look like trees walking around. And then Jesus does it again, and there's a complete healing. On the surface, it looks kind of weird. It's like Jesus like doing a magic trick, and he didn't quite get it right the first time, so let me try it this way. But, that was deliberate. It's not like Jesus didn't quite use all of his omnipotence at the first shot, so we had to give it a second round. Jesus is trying to teach us something, that healing happens in a relationship with Christ. Sometimes it takes time. It's a process. And sometimes God heals through afflictions. And it sounds weird, but like sometimes he allows us to experience, afflictions so that he can heal something deeper. Like maybe I have a deep distrust of God, of the Father, or whatever. And sometimes he allows me to experience a wound so that I can encounter him in and through that wound. Well, I'm busy. Get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. And he's like, no, I want to meet you in that place. Yep. Obviously there's a profound mystery in that, but you think of Padre Pio. I mean, the guy lost a pint of blood per day out of his stigmata for 50 years. And from what I understand, they miraculously healed upon his death. And, for all eternity, God has that time to, as the Old Testament says, to restore the years the locust has eaten. In other words, like these plagues of locust came, destroyed crops, but God can restore all of that was lost, and he has all eternity to do so. And so try to look at it through that eternal lens and just know that God is healing you through this. I mean, I think we've all kind of heard that one preaching analogy that, sometimes a shepherd of a single sheep keeps going off on its own, that the sheep out of mercy will take the sheep and break its leg and then carry it on its shoulders until it's healed, and then they'll form a bond together and the sheep will never leave his side. From what I understand, it's a completely bogus urban legend that just circulates in Christian circles. Like, dude, a shepherd wouldn't do that to his sheep. Like, come here, crack. Okay, now I just want to carry this stinky piece of livestock on me for like 6 months until your bones heal. And by the time his bone did heal, I don't know if I was a sheep, like I would run twice as fast away from that nut of a shepherd who thought he was going to earn my trust by breaking my leg. So apparently it's a total urban legend, but I think we can still derive something out of that sometimes God meets us and heals us in the midst of our afflictions. And so you just want to make sure in the meantime that you're doing the human element of healing, because sometimes I think we want to sit back and be like, okay, God, do your thing. And he's like, okay, it's like that analogy of, the water's rising and someone says, hey, the flood's coming, come with me. And the guy's like, God will save me. Okay. And then someone comes up with a boat, hey, come on, you're going to drown. Oh, God will save me. All right. And then the guy climbs up on his roof and the flood rider, oh, God will save me. And finally a helicopter comes, God will save me. And then the guy drowns, gets to heaven, like, God, why did you save me? And God's like, what did you think the boat was for? The helicopter was for? Like, I gave you human means. And so try to make sure that you're taking advantage of the psychological services, if you need that, of counseling, getting enough adequate rest and sleep and exercise and different human elements to make sure you're doing your part in the whole healing process. Next question. Middle school students, perhaps especially, imitate the culture that they see. How can a Catholic school effectively counter the trash and porn to which most, not all, but most are exposed to on a daily basis? And so, Father, what can middle schools do to help these kids resist the tide of all that junk?
Well, that's a good question. I guess it would depend on what role you play at that middle school. If you're a student there, if you're a teacher there, if you're a principal, maybe if you're a board member there. I mean, I think all of us have a different role to play. If you're an authority, if you're a principal, your administration, there is a real responsibility to create a culture in the areas under your sphere of influence. And so what is the board member, what is the principal doing to make sure that positive culture is lived? I understand it is tough and it is not easy, but even still, there's intentional decisions that affect the way things are done in the school. I mean, okay, maybe a sports analogy. If you have a team that's winning a Super Bowl every year and you have one that's losing every single year, a lot of times they say it's a culture question, there's a need for a change in culture. And I think that's something that is incumbent upon the principals, upon the board members to kind of look at. If you're a teacher, well, I remember a lot of teachers in middle school who were morally upstanding people. And that, even if it was the science teacher, that had an influence on me. So know that your faith lived intentionally, has an effect. And I give thanks to God for, some of the teachers who caught me cheating. Yes, Mrs. Alma Castillo, thank you. Because that, in a sense, it set it made it clear there's some things that are right, there's some things that are wrong. And a lot of times in the middle school years, unfortunately, that's fluid still. You're still figuring that out. You're like, oh yeah, I heard that that's wrong, but is it really wrong? And when you have some of these moral figures like teachers, that kind of sets some of those things in action, and it clarifies. So as a student, at the risk of being made fun of, at the risk of kind of going a different path, I want to invite middle school students who are listening to this to be prophetic in your witness. It might not be easy in the interim, but let me tell you, your friends eventually will deeply respect you. And the choices that you make now, it really does, bear fruit as you go along. And so that's what I just in general, how I would answer that question. It's a big question.
Yeah, two thoughts I'd throw in there too. One, I think of what the Archdiocese of Denver has done for like the last, I think, 8 or 9 years. They've had an 8th grade chastity day where they literally bus in every 8th grader in the Archdiocese to this big high school, and they spend a whole day of chastity formation from different speakers. I mean, all come, Christophanic, Crystalina, different speakers will come and, have men's sessions, girls' sessions, Q&A sessions, Eucharistic adoration, just kind of inoculating these kids before they head off to high school. And I mentioned that diocesan effort just because sometimes I think people's vision is a bit narrow. I remember a mom reaching out to us and say, okay, we would like to bring Jason out for chastity talk. I'd like to fly him to my living room and have him give a chastity talk to my teenage son in our living room on the couch. And I'm like, well, I applaud you for your zeal for souls, but let's broaden the audience a little bit. So, maybe we can invite maybe a couple hundred people and have it in a church. So it's just slightly less awkward. And so if you might be thinking laser beam on your kids, like maybe zone it out. Like what can we do for the whole diocese, in these types of programs? And then secondly, what I'd recommend for the administration, prayerfully hire solid teachers, not just in the religion department. I think Catholic schools a lot of times compartmentalize the faith. Okay, that's the religion department, find a religious person. Okay, we got that covered. Math, math? Okay, you're in the door, come on in. But I don't know about you, but I'd learned so much more about real faith sometimes from my teachers who never taught that subject. I just remember a psychology professor in high school, a teacher, and all I remember is like whenever he would talk about his wife and kids, he'd kind of tear up. And at the time I thought I think he's kind of overly attached to his wife and kids a little bit. It's kind of strange. He's like, but it was just something about the love he had for his family. It wasn't even in the lesson plan. It was just in his eyes. And so make sure you're hiring solid, faithful Catholics. I mean, young ones, go to, reach out to solid universities. If you look at the Newman Guide for choosing a Catholic college, they'll have a list of solid Catholic universities: Steubenville, Ave Maria, Christendom, Benedictine, John Paul the Great, Wyoming Catholic. There's so many solid good ones. Reach out and say, hey, we have some job openings coming up in the fall. Where can we kind of put on your bulletin board that these openings are there? That way you could get these energetic, solid, faith-filled young Catholics to be there on the campus, not just in the religion department. But man, if you can stack the deck with a solid faculty, man, it's night and day. It's more the faith by osmosis when you're building up your team like that.
It creates that culture.
Next 3 questions. Father, knowing how people can heal from sexual images in their minds after getting over sexual addictions would be really interesting. So how do you heal from those images in your mind if you've overcome kind of the behavioral aspect of the addiction, but kind of the scar tissue still remains?
Yeah, that's a good question. St. Thomas Aquinas actually says something about this. When you have a thought of perhaps of a past sin or some sort of, sexual temptation, he says, in essence, this is my, paraphrasing of his Latin. He says to change the channel. He says, learn to focus your thoughts on something holy, on something else, so that, some of those things that you're thinking of that might be bringing you down can get replaced by something good and holy. But at the same time, we have confession, and if it's a sin that you are not sure if you confessed, just go to confession and say, hey, Father, I'm not sure if I confessed this, but I just wanted to confess this. And then once it's confessed, and if it comes back again, well, instead of the devil kind of rubbing something in your face, you can be just like, you know what? Praise God for the reminder of how I'm healed, of how I, brought that to the cross, and I'm forgiven. And it's almost like we need to try to combat the devil's lies in trying to divide us, demean us, by informing those thoughts that has already been forgiven, and I believe in the mercy and love of Jesus Christ. So there's that. There's also prayers. There's I think Saint Saint Ignatius of Loyola, prayed a prayer for healing of memories. And, he was a soldier, right? He saw some gruesome things. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe he took some people's lives. I mean, like that has a way of just like tattooing itself to your memory, and to just like, take, Lord, receive all I am and all I have, my memory, my understanding, my entire will. Give me only your love and your grace, and that's enough for me. It's like, Lord, you take my memory, you heal my memory, you take this. I can't forget this. This happened, and it's not like, and you know what? Some things you're not supposed to forget. I mean, like there's some traumas and difficulties that are meant to be healed, but can't be forgotten. But nonetheless, just because you remember it doesn't mean it's not healed. And so like bring it to the Lord for that healing is what I would say.
I remember it must have been like 20 something years ago. I met some high school kid and he said, whenever he's tempted with a lustful thought, he said, my strategy is to think of Ross Perot, who was an elderly presidential candidate from like 2 decades ago, and I'm like, hey, like whatever works, and so that's kind of maybe, a Thomistic strategy of changing the channel, but not to one up the angelic doctor, but I would say instead of changing the channel, turn up the volume. And what I mean by that is, although this memory might incline you toward lust, hit the pause button and be like, okay, beauty is an invitation of love. Am I responding to this person in love? And yeah, redirecting away from lust is love, but it's a basis. It's a starting point. But it can't end there in a sense. What I'm saying is like, okay, you think of this, let's say your guy saw some pornographic image and it's kind of stuck in your brain. Instead of like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. Okay, God, I'm thinking about it right now. God, where's this woman in the world right now? What's going on in her life? What led her to the choices that she made to live out that lifestyle? And how can I intercede for her right now? Let's do a decade of the Holy Rosary specifically for her. And by doing this, you're transforming temptation into intercession. You're responding to the beauty of the body in reparation with love instead of lust. And then I was reading recently, I just finished reading this book here, God is Beauty. It's a reflection of John Paul II, a retreat he did for artists. And there's some commentary at the end by Christopher West. And listen to this, what he's saying. He said that the mystery that entered in this world and is wooing us, drawing us to itself with everything that attracts the heart, with everything that is true, good, and beautiful, with every drop of rain. So in a sense, every glimmer of beauty can be a kind of a window to the infinite. It's just a fragment of the infinite, but God is ultimately wooing us with beauty, and all the devil can do is kind of twist that and redirect our attention. But it's like, okay, the beauty that I feel so drawn to in that person needs to be untwisted and not just shamed and rejected. It's like, it's bad, I got to shove it into my subconscious. It's like, okay, this ache I have to be united with what is beautiful, God gave me that. And if I spend the rest of my life just kind of like white knuckling it hard enough to just expunge that out of my life, it's not even a human existence, I think. It's just one of just repression and eventually just going to explode and give up. Yep. We've got to integrate these sexual desires. And so, Father, thank you for those insights there. Last 2 questions. Someone said, I was here with them in Washington State University really recently. One question that I couldn't get to was, what if my sibling identifies as trans? My answer to that would partly depend upon the age of the sibling. For example, if you've got a 12-year-old little sister and she comes out, Mom, Dad, I'm non-binary. I would like to get a binder followed by puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and a double mastectomy. It's like, okay, wow, what do we do here for this young woman? Step 1, I would say, is listen to her. Don't freak out and shame her. Oh, it's just a phase. You're going to get over it. Kind of dismiss her. No, you want to listen with kind of a posture of reverent curiosity and say, wow, what was that like to share that, with us? I know that must have been difficult. How long has this been going on in your life? When did you start feeling that? And, when does it seem to be triggered the most? Is it like when you have to wear something particular, or you have to, go somewhere or conform to certain stereotypes? Tell me more about what that feels like. Help them vent this in a healthy way, not to enter into an immediate debate. Okay, well, gender theory is false because of X, Y, Z, and your chromosomes and now's not really the time. Now's the time to listen, to build that relationship and make her feel heard. Because so often these adolescents that are experiencing what some are calling rapid onset gender dysphoria are finding a sense of identity and community and mission on these online forums where they finally feel accepted when they feel like a mystery to themselves and rejected by others. And if they feel rejected by their families or faith communities, it's just going to make them burrow all the more deeper into these virtual worlds of gender identity. And so we've got to make sure that we're a good sounding board to listen with love to the things that they're going through. And with enough listening and care, then you can offer them truth with so charity and clarity together. So there's love and there's logic. It's not one or the other. Some people say, well, if you love these people, then you just affirm them. And if you don't affirm them, then you're just rejecting them. It's like, no, that's a false binary. It's a false dichotomy. It's not acceptance or abandonment. It's accompaniment of walking with these people in love. And so if you got a sibling who's younger, I'd recommend a book especially by Abigail Schreier called Irreversible Damage. Now, let's say you have an older sibling, maybe they're 25 years old, and they're not necessarily under the authority of your parents to tell them, nope, you're not going to a gender clinic. Again, the listening posture. And as you deepen your relationship and friendship with them, maybe they'll be open to sharing resources. Now, where did you learn about this? Because I understand, like, I've got a lot to learn. I don't always understand what all these terms mean. It's kind of new to me. Where have you learned about this? And then I could share you maybe some resources of what I've learned about this. Our website, chastity.com/gender, has a ton of articles, podcasts, videos, parental networks, legal teams, medical teams, all kinds of stuff there on that one site for families or individuals who are wrestling with the topic of gender dysphoria. I'm also coming out with a book on the subject. It's going off to the copy editor tonight. I've just got a couple last edits to make that have come in from different doctors and experts. Going off to the copy editor, should be ready, I'm hoping, in December. So that'll be coming out. But in the meantime, chastity.com/gender. Father, any other thoughts on a sibling who identifies as trans?
No, Jason, I thought that was an incredible answer. Like it's very, very practical. And I think that, obviously this is a great source of pain and difficulty for everyone. I've spoken to parents who come to me and say, my child is telling me this, what do I do? And I've spoken to young people who say, like, I don't, I feel this, what do I do? And, to approach it with a Christ-like tenderness. Jesus approached people with that disposition. Just to give a story real quick, there was a young woman that I was, that I knew pretty well, and she was going through some very difficult times in her life. And, she had some gender identity questions, some deep ones. And then she calls me up and she says, I need to speak to someone. It's like, yeah, what can I do? It's like, no, but I don't want to speak to anyone in the Catholic Church. And I said, you do know I'm a priest, right? And she said, what? I said, I'm a priest. You know that, right? And she said, no, but you're different. Now, I had spent like years of investing time into this person, walking with this person, helping. I anointed her mother at her deathbed. There's some real rapport, with me and her family, working with a number of situations, helping things out, what friars do, right? And so I was, in a way, in a privileged place with her, to listen to her and to walk with her. And I always try to get back to that place. It takes time, it takes investment. But if it's your child, then all the more reason. This is what we're here to do, and it's beautiful. And sometimes it's quite difficult because it's not going to all just be resolved, like right away. It's not an overnight thing, but eventually, with time, that investment in your children, in your loved ones, will bear fruit. It might take years. And that's okay. This is a long-term commitment here, and that's what family is, right? A long-term commitment. So we're still family, even at the moment of death, even beyond death. So that's how I would answer this. I think, Jason, you gave some great, different categories of different ages and like what to do concretely and practically. But if I can give kind of like the overall, like let's love radically as well in this way.
Amen. Last question. Someone asked, we all know what chastity isn't, meaning thou shalt not commit adultery, watch porn, fornicate, etc. But what is the positive definition of chastity that reveals to us a concrete good to internalize?
I love this. The positive definition of chastity is it's a radical relationship with Jesus Christ. Chastity is a radical yes, and it's a no by extension. When a man loves a woman, he loves her and he says yes to her. He's saying no to the other 3 billion women in the world, right? But it's not about them. It's about him saying yes to the woman that he loves. And this is what we mean when we say chastity is a yes. Chastity is a relationship. Chastity is freedom. Chastity, I was speaking to a young person the other day, and she was just saying, chastity is happiness. I have peace. Now, I know the journey that this young woman has gone through, and that means something, because unfortunately, sometimes we have to taste some of the bitter things in life to understand and to appreciate how good it is to be with the Lord. So chastity, short answer, radical relationship with Jesus Christ, a relationship of love. That's the good stuff.
Yeah. So chastity is intimacy with Jesus Christ. I think of the story that you told that person of the happiness. I met a girl at a high school assembly of just a few weeks ago, and she said, you came to the school 4 years ago when my sister was a senior or whatever, and she said that day turned my sister's life around, and she has embraced chastity wholeheartedly every day since then. And she said now she's a college student at the University of Tennessee, and she's just living her best life, and she's so happy. And I'm like, oh, was she at the football game a couple weeks ago when they beat Alabama and everyone stormed the field and stole the goalpost? And like, yeah, she was there. And I just thought of that crowd of orange there at that football team. That one little dot in that speck of the ocean of tens of thousands of college students was just a happy college girl who's just found joy in embracing this virtue of chastity. And so that's what John Paul said. Chastity is the sure way to happiness. And so the positive dimension of it, I think Christ gives us. Blessed are the pure in heart, they will see God. Not only God in the next life, but to see God in this life. Not only to see him in creation, but to see him in your girlfriend, to see him even in yourself. That's the fruit of purity. It was St. Alphonsus Liguori that said that when a raven finds a dead body, its first act is to pluck out the eyes. And he said, in the same respect, the first injury that impurity inflicts on the soul is to take away the light of the things of God. In other words, like spirituality, faith, Trinity, purgatory, religion, like Pope, it doesn't make any sense. I think this is why we're seeing such a rise in people who identify as nuns, N-O-N-E-S, of no religious affiliation whatsoever. It's kind of gone hand in hand with the rise of things like pornography, that if we're not pure in heart, our soul is kind of like a window through which we can see God. And if it's just smudged with all these sins, it's just, everything just becomes difficult to see in terms of the spiritual life. And so purity gives us that clarity of heart to see God, and also just the freedom to love, because if I can't say no to my sexual impulses, saying yes, that means nothing. It frees you to know if you're being loved. And the analogy I sometimes use is that when you take a fire and you blow on it, if it's a weak flame, the wind will just snuff it out. But if it's a strong fire, like a brush fire, and you blow on that, it ascends into a forest, an inferno, a forest fire. And it's the same effect that purity has on love that is true or false. If you apply purity to a love that's false, that's lust, it'll extinguish it. But if you apply purity to a love that is true, it inflames it, because sacrifice is the food of love. And so hopefully all these different insights will kind of give you, some pointers as to the positive dimension of chastity, not simply a repression of sexual urges, not merely abstinence, which is just the absence of sex, but the presence of a virtue that frees you to love in the image and likeness of God. But Father, it's been awesome having you on. We want to remind everybody to sign up for the pilgrimage. There's just a little time left we need a couple more slots to get filled for this thing. God might be calling you. Come with us to Mexico City for the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe and spend a week with Father Agustino and I working with the poor, visiting some beautiful places, and just growing in your faith. Just go to chastity.com/pilgrimage or hit the link in the bottom of the show notes. And then, Father, is there a way that people can get in touch with you or learn about the C.F.Rs if they think they might have a vocation? Any information you want to share with the listeners?
Absolutely. FranciscanFriars.com. The only thing that we sell is Jesus, and it's for free. And corazonpuro.org, and check me out on Instagram, OraleCP, ORALECP.
Awesome. God bless you, Father. Can you give us a blessing before we head out?
Absolutely. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord God, we ask that you bless everyone who's tuning in, listening in, connecting. I pray especially for all those people who have submitted their questions. I thank you, Lord God, for their questions, their bravery. I pray, Lord God, that you may heal their hearts and listen to their petitions. And I bless all who are listening in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father.